derived from the leaves of the coca plant. When cocaine enters the body, it has a strong effect on body functions by acting as an irritant on the brain. Large overdose of cocaine causes convulsions, then death. Cocaine causes unusual and often unpredictable feelings and actions. In his ignorance, Marty took that dare, little knowing the eventual horror that lay in the deadly white powder.
Marty, have you seen the picking shears I bought last week? Can't seem to find them anywhere. Marty, you don't seem right. I'm worried about you. There's something wrong. I'm going to take you down to Dr. Richard this afternoon for a checkup.
No, I'm all right.
As his body gradually built up intolerance, he needed more and more of the drug. Unusual and often unpredictable feelings. Marty was hooked.
Okay. Right. Music stopped. You made it.
Yes.
She's here. My guest is here. Welcome. This is Kiss Recovery 101. Oh, I got a sound effect. Yeah, that makes it official. Okay. So, tonight, I'm so excited. This has been a long time wanting guest here. I attended this 8-week amazing training group, and I am a person, Bridge Sky here. I have a lot of trauma, grief in my life, and always still working on how to better process that in a safe space. And your space over at Twin Cities Recovery Project is safe. Oh, and they know some real stuff. So I just wanted to first introduce you. I'll let you just say your name and where you're from, maybe how we met, and then we'll go from there.
Okay. Hi, my name is Cynthia Elmore, also known as Coco Dollar, either one. So I met Bridge. Actually, I was on the show before with Twin Cities Recovery Project, and we were just talking about a lot of the work that we do out in the community. We are RCO, which is a recovery community organization. I started out as a certified peer recovery specialist, and I'm still a certified peer recovery specialist, but I'm also the grief and trauma program coordinator at Twin Cities Recovery Project. In that role, I have the pleasure of working with a lot of diverse population of people that are on their journey to heal. And it's very important that we do heal, because unresolved grief and unresolved trauma, it contributes to recidivism, substance use disorder, mental health issues. It's a lot of different variations and factors that unresolved grief and trauma attribute to. So what I would like to talk about is how when one recognizes or realizes they have unresolved grief and trauma, in my experience, my first trauma was when I was 4 years old. I was sexually assaulted repeatedly for up until 8, and I buried it in my subconscious until my 30s. And I remember when it started coming up in the dreams and just different things through intercourse, just different things. And when I had to finally decide to get professional help, I found a support group. It was called Survivors for Sexual Assault for African American Women. I met the lady at Cook, and the classes were held at the Phyllis Wheatley Community Center. I'll never forget the first 3 times I went to that class, I couldn't do nothing but cry, and they allowed me to just cry and not participate. But the 4th meeting, I was ready. And at the time, that was a 12-week course. I went through that group for 12 weeks, and it really helped me. They hooked me up with a psychiatrist, and that it was so freeing for me. But at the beginning, when one decides to work on healing, it can be scary. You don't know if people are going to go run around and tell people what you say. And I have to reiterate and let you know, Twin Cities Recovery Project Grief and Trauma Program is a very safe space. Everybody in the space of grief and trauma are all there dealing with some sort of grief or trauma. So we all respect each other. I'm happy to know that we're not alone. Do you ever heal? Yes, healing is possible. And everybody heals in their own different time. Everybody gets to acceptance in their own different time. After the 8 weeks, it got to the point where people were like, what now? What now? So I implemented the Grief and Trauma Aftercare program at Twin Cities Recovery Project. And right now, that's a year program. What we do there, we have social wellness outings. We have art bereavement, art therapy. We do a workbook. The aftercare program is much more designed to deal with individual loss and individual grief versus the 8 weeks where you are learning the stages of grief and what acceptance means, and hearing traumatic stories of people's loss, no matter what it is. It could be not just a loss of a loved one. It could be loss of a childhood, loss of a job, a relationship, even the loss of your drug of choice, your home, anything. It doesn't have to be the death or a deceased loved one. And everybody has their own time to grieve. Nobody has a certain set time. Nobody tells nobody, oh, you should be over that now. No, it's when that person feels they're ready to be on the road to acceptance and then implement some things in their life to get some normalcy back in their life. Because in reality, that person is never going to be back physically, but they will always be with you in spirit and in mind and in heart. So that's a lot of things that I talk about. Would you like to say something, Bridge?
Thank you, Cynthia. So that 8 weeks was amazing. I attended that with Sarah. Yes. And we got right into it week 1. Okay. So I was not used to that, but it was good. And it, like, literally what I realized, just what you said, is it was a safe space and I was allowed to just cry. And there was a moment that touched me, not even with myself, with Sarah. See, this is how I feel like you're such a brilliant woman is. I know Sarah pretty well, okay? A lot of people can't read her very well. You know, she's very outgoing and positive, so it's hard to know those underlining that pain. She doesn't just show that. You caught it. She didn't say nothing. We were sharing, and she shared a little bit, and I wasn't looking at her or nothing, so I didn't even recognize it. All of a sudden, there's this pause, and you're like, Sarah, you want to talk more about that? And I look over and I'm like, oh my goodness, I didn't even catch it. You caught it. And she opened up. Mm-hmm. You got her to open up. That's not an easy task. And she got to release. And I mean, that group was so touching. I'm getting goosebumps. I mean, there are some amazing individuals in that group that I attended where they've lost. My biggest fear is losing a child or multiple children. Mm-hmm. And that is like a grief I can't even, it's hard to even like talk about, say openly. And the fact that they were there and sharing gave me hope. It gave me faith that I will be able to, if something like that awful ever happened, I know exactly where I'm going, you know?
We pray and hope it don't. However, it's something that, I've learned by doing this group is like when someone loses a child or someone loses, have a loss that nobody has had that loss. A lot of people tend to say, oh, you'll be okay, or everything will be all right. Well, that's not really the thing to say. The thing to say is, I really don't know how you feel. I can't relate to how you feel, but I'm here to support you in whatever capacity that you need me to. And then another thing, because I have a list of do's and don't things to say when someone's grieving. A lot of people say, oh, he or she's in a better place. The person that has a loss does not want to hear you say that. They want to hear you say, I'm here for you. Sometimes if you don't know what to say, that's the best thing to say. I'm here if you need me. And just leave it at that. Holidays is another thing is really hard for people. There's ways we give handouts for ways for people to incorporate good memories and different exercises and different things to incorporate their lost loved ones into their holidays or daily rituals. We do the memory boxes. Right now in the aftercare program, we have the bereavement heart art therapy, and that is so. I was shocked to learn that so many men could open up freely while they were coloring or while they were doing something with their hands. So that was that was a learning experience for me, and it turned out really good. So we have these sheets that says grieve. One says grieve in words and has art in it. Then there's happy, there's healing, there's connection, There's a whole bunch of different, about like 10 of them. And when we do it, so if we do one that says grief, we color it, and then on it we write all the words that begin with a G that remind you of your loss. They can be positive or they can be negative. It's up to you. And each week we do that with whatever word we're doing. We have empathy, healing, just a whole bunch in each week. And then I take and I showcase them. I have what's called a Grief and Trauma Art Corner there, and I just put them all up, and when they come and see their pictures of it, just brings smiles to their face, like, oh, look at, I did that. This Monday on Aftercare, we're going to Dave & Buster's.
Oh, fun.
Yes, this is our outing, our social wellness outing. Right now, what I'm trying to push for, and this will include those who have taken the 8 weeks, I'm pushing for a grief and trauma retreat, a holiday retreat, where the members will get free body massages. We'll have some workshops. We'll eat. We'll play some games, dominoes, cards, Scrabble, Uno, whatever. Have some time in the pool, in the hot tub, and, from Friday night to Sunday, and if things turn out the way I want it, have a gift bag for each individual, like a wish gift bag. So that's what I've been working on. I love what I do. The late, great Mr. Mark Jonigan, when I started volunteering in 2019 and then became employed there in 2020, asked, did anybody want to learn how to facilitate grief and trauma? And I was the only one that raised my hand. And really the reason why I did, because I felt that I still need to do more work on my own grief and my own trauma, especially the grief around losing my dad and my grandma. I just felt that I needed, and believe it or not, it's very reciprocal doing this group, because there are times when I get more from the group than they get from me. And that makes me feel good, because sometimes I'm just like, woo. And then they can say, oh, what's wrong, Miss Cynthia? We know something's wrong. And by the end of that group, I'm back to my normal self, So I love what I do. I really do love grief and trauma. And it's sad, because it's not sad, but when I leave work, I'm not left work, because where I'm at in the community, what I'm doing in the community, when I talk to people, it always comes up that's what I do. And always somebody, oh, good, I need you. Give me your number. I need, it's about time for me to, and I was at an expo today, the Twin Cities Hair Expo, and I seen a couple members who had taken it, and they had there was vendors down there, and they were so happy to see me, and they were saying, we gonna come to the aftercare one day. I said, well, it's gonna be here for you to come. So come on. But yeah, just that connection when you see somebody, and for them to just embrace you and hug you and let you know that, it was real, it was a good service, and it really worked for them, and what you brought up to me, that I'm working on as well, and I never ever thought about it. The trauma and the grief that our children go through while we're out there in the world, when we're out there not being a responsible parent, or when we're out there in our addiction, all the things that our children endured. I never, thought about that. Even when people when they die, some people forget all about kids and how they feel. So I'm working on that right now, implementing the grief and trauma for youth, and that's going to be for youth under. It's going to be 25 down to 5.
Okay.
So, and it'll be 2 different groups, from 5 to 17 and 17 to 25.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, that's what I'm working on right now. I'm trying to do some with the county with that. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, and tap me in.
Oh, I definitely will.
I got 5 kids, multiple ages, so I got some experience.
Yep.
Okay, so that first alarm you heard was just a reminder. This is a live show for a reason, Cynthia, because I want the listeners to interact, whether they just, chime in. A Facebook user, and they can remain anonymous if they want to, says, beautiful. They can ask questions, they can give their viewpoints, but I like to do this live just so that people have the opportunity to interact while we're right here in person. So if you're just listening, Kiss Recovery 101, we go about an hour. First, if you're catching us right now, we ran a little late, but that's okay, because guess what? It's my show, Cynthia. I can run late if I want to.
All right.
But yeah, we're just having a conversation about grief and trauma and finding that support and connection. And I love what you just said about connection. I'm going to chime back in on that. Another alarm's going to go off soon. 8:30. We're going to do a hot seat segment tonight, Cynthia.
Okay.
You're going to be in the hot seat, but it's meant to be not to make you uncomfortable, but 3 deeper questions I'm going to ask you. You only share what you feel comfortable, but so that anyone listening, maybe on how you answer, they can connect with.
Okay.
Right? And then the last segment, that last alarm will go off. It's just for fun mostly, but it's live Facebook memes. I'm going to share memes throughout the week that for whatever reason I thought was funny or maybe inspirational or maybe just hit me hard. But I like to share them live with my guests, and you give me your live reaction. Okay, and be honest with this. Some memes I've shared have been weird or uncomfortable. Just tell me that. But the listeners will be able to see it as well as you here.
Okay.
Okay, so the connection piece I loved. I love that, especially with trauma and grief. That's a deeper level. And it is hard to talk for myself. I'll talk about myself. It's hard for me to share a lot of things like that because unless you've gone through something similar, I know that I don't feel comfortable sharing nothing with you. And so that's why I said week 1 coming in your group, I'm like, oh my goodness, I could share all kinds of things. And I want to share a clip tonight. I did send it to you last minute, so I'm sure you didn't get but I don't, we're not going to share the whole thing. I'm only share like 3 minutes. But do you know who Dr. Gabor Mate is? Have you heard of him?
Yes, I have.
Oh my God, he's amazing.
He is amazing.
Yes. And what I love.
Canada.
Yes. And he just gets people in recovery. Like, I just feel like he gets me. And he gives such a, compassionate, and he understands true empathy. Yes. All right.
I love him.
Yes. And he gives us a voice that, I feel like he can put into words things I haven't been able to ever. Yes. So I'm going to play this little clip. You'll be able to listen to it too, but
Dr. Mate.
He talks about something, and I want to get your feedback on this, okay? So what I think a lot of people in his own story is why he talks about this. A lot of people have trauma they don't even know that they had. You could have stuff that happened to you as an infant, as a toddler, as a child that you didn't even realize impacted you in that way. But like you said, if we don't process that grief, whatever it looks like, it's going to come out in other ways. And a lot of times it could come out in anger and rage, and you're not even realizing that it's because your brain has been wired a certain way because of trauma that you're, as a baby or as a young person, didn't know how to process. So I still have reactions that now I'm aware of so that I can respond and process and put those things on the table. And later I want to talk to you about, I got a personal thing right now with my daughter, my only daughter. I'm in this space of grieving. See, I don't just want to cry with you right here. I'm grieving. She's become a young woman now, right? She's not my baby anymore. And I feel sad because I feel like I took that for granted because before, she was she's my only daughter. Every moment she wanted to be with me, and now she wants nothing to do with me. And I'm so sad about it. But I've been talking a lot about it, and I even shed some tears. But it's definitely, I need to process it because otherwise it's been impacting me in other ways. Okay, so let me play this quick. I uploaded. So if you go on YouTube and you look up, let's see, you could just search Dr. Gabor Mate. I'm going to post the link for the full video. I encourage you to see it. But it's on the Inner Child channel, which I love. But it's, let's see if it'll give me the name of it. So it's the Healthy Grieving is Important. Dr. Gabor Mate. It's on the Inner Child channel. Again, I'll post the link. But here's this little clip, and I just want to get your feedback on this. Okay, here we go. I'm going to turn the volume all the way up and mute us. Short.
System for seeking. Now, one of the systems that he distinguished was what he calls panic grief, panic/grief, again, capitalized. This is the response of the young creature who doesn't get the care that they need. If you're an infant and your parents are not there with you. They're meant to be with you 24/7, by the way. No mother cat leaves their infant. No mother orangutan puts the infant in a tree and goes off on a picnic. So when the parent is not around, the infant is meant to panic. Why? Because the infant panic response will show itself in crying and distress, and that'll bring the parent running because the parent's care system gets activated by the child's panic. Grief is when the care is lost and there's real grief. And that's the necessary process to come to terms with the loss. It's gone. I'm not getting it back. I'm so sad. Now, in our evolutionary environment, where we grew up in small band hunter-gatherer groups, the parents may have been lost, but there were others around to hold the child. So the child would be held in their grief. If the child is held in their grief, they can move through it and move past it and know that it's okay to grieve, even liberating to grieve, just like the liberation that you felt. But if there's nobody around to hold the child in their grief, then we suppress our capacity to grieve. And when you talk about the people that don't know how to grieve, that's what you're talking about. They're telling you about their childhood histories, their infant histories, actually, probably. So these losses, they don't need to be overtly catastrophic, but
What is your first thoughts on that? Go ahead. Anything?
Yes. So in 1987, I ended up going to prison, and I was pregnant when I went there, and I had a child that was born in prison. And in my young mind, I didn't want to be depressed about not holding her and not being able to see her because I still had 19 months to go after she was born. And I didn't have a bond with her. And it caused a lot of problems between me and her, to the point where she always felt like I loved my other two kids more than I loved her, which is not the case. It was just, I was just young, and I didn't know that no matter where you were, if you bonded with them those first few days, that it would, and that's what that when he started talking about the child and the caregiver, that's the first thing that came to my mind. The second thing is, as a kid, I remember wanting to go with my mother a lot of times, and I couldn't. And then when she wanted me to come with her, I didn't want to go. I just think Dr. Mate hits things right on the head. It's like, I don't know if he's been through a lot of this stuff or what, but I mean, I've read a lot of his stuff. I watched a lot of films by him, all different kinds. And I just think that this man, either through studies and meeting people, and personal experience, just has a tumultuous amount of knowledge.
Yes.
So that's what that reminded me of, and I agree with everything he says about the child, about the baby, and that came home to roost for me. So,
Yeah.
yes.
That's exactly what I would say, is that he just hits everything. And what I love about him, so this show's called Keep It Simple, Stupid, because I overcomplicate everything. But what I realize, in the world, we overcomplicate shit, everything. But what he does is he brings it back to nature and our instincts as human beings, right?
Yes.
And it blows my mind because literally everything he says, I'm like, that totally makes sense. I totally connect with that. You know, I had people telling me, like, it's not okay for me to have my child sleep in my bed. You know, I had people telling me, you know, how to mother or do all these things, but I didn't listen to that. I did what I felt, you know, I connected with, whether they believed it or not, you know. And I love that he said, if we don't, you know, we're going to, I love this part because I never heard this. We suppress our capacity to grieve, okay? So that put it to words to me because I'm like, I go numb, especially like this last couple weeks. Like I can't even feel. Like I just go. I know now. You know, that's dealing with part of my awareness of traumas. But like, still, it's hard for me to cry real tears. Like you'll hear it in my voice. You'll hear like I can feel the emotion, but I can't cry real tears. You know. So, but I think that's because I don't know facts around my adoption. I just know as babies, my brother and I, twin brother, our birth mother wasn't capable. There was lots of reports, and at 5 months, she actually literally gave us away in the skyway. And she's still out there today. Like I don't know what, but I know that I did not get a lot of comforting. And then even with the household that I grew up in, there was no love, hugs, or kisses, none of that. So it's hard for me, and you weren't allowed. I wasn't allowed to show emotion. If I cried, I got hit. So I learned not to cry. Okay. So I'm still working on it. So it feels like such a release when I come to a space like you have right there, that I immediately I feel like relaxed. Like, okay, I'm going to be able to be my authentic self. It's not that I can't in some of my meetings and in groups that I'm in, but again, if you didn't grow up with, for me, this is only me, with trauma and grief, and you can't understand it to the capacity that I've lived through, it's hard for me to really let my guard down, you know, because of fear of judgment. So, but you did hear the alarm. Do you want to say one more thing, and then we're going to get to the hot seat?
No, that's fine.
You ready?
Yeah.
Let's just do it. Okay. So, again, Cynthia is here joining us from Twin Cities Recovery Project. Again, I'm going to share all the links to all the information so they get hooked up. Okay. Do you have a training coming up again for the next 8 weeks, or is it going to be a minute? And I want to get the deets on the retreat. I'm going to be coming to that.
Okay. So we have, on Tuesday nights, we have the community, which is open to community members, grief and trauma support group. We have actually 5 more weeks.
Wow. Okay.
And then 1 week in between, and then we'll be starting. So let me get my calendar, and I can give you a date if I can pull up my calendar.
Okay.
For the community corrections, which is probation and parole. That's on Thursday nights, and we have so this week, and then we have 3 more groups. Then we have a week, and then we'll start another one.
I love it.
Aftercare is ongoing. That's Mondays from 6 to 7:30. All groups are evenings from 6 to 7:30.
Okay.
Yes.
So right on the website, so if you go to twincitiesrecoveryproject.org, it says the TCRP Grief Support Program is a support group that assists participants in the process of grieving recent and past losses. Grief is not limited to death, but also childhood trauma, broken relationships, loss of jobs, you know, like loss of a pet. You know, pets are like children too.
Yeah, like a family member.
But by attending an 8-week curriculum on grief, participants will have gained the ability to recognize the cause of their grief and understanding and recognition of their emotions and the emotional stages during the grieving process. Participants will also have an increased knowledge of the key definitions of components associated with grief, and ultimately they will be able to demonstrate improved emotional well-being, behaviors consistent with healing process, in hopes of reaching a level of acceptance. So I learned in your group there's 3 main types of trauma. Now, I didn't know this. You give all the handouts. I love all the handouts. You know, I like to read at home and stuff where I did. Maybe I'll sink in when I was there, but it says there's acute trauma, which results from a single incident. There's chronic trauma, which is repeated and prolonged, such as domestic violence or abuse. And then there's complex, ding ding, that's where I fall in, trauma, which is exposure to varied and multiple traumatic events, often in invasive interpersonal nature. And I loved how we just literally one night had a full-on conversation about that, because I couldn't understand it. before that. But what are the stages? 7 stages of grief. Number 1, shock and denial. Number 2, pain and guilt. 3, anger and bargaining. Ooh, let's talk about bargaining in a second here. 4 is depression. 5 is the upward turn. 6 is reconstruction and working through. And then 7, acceptance and hope. Now, everybody has their own stages that they list in different words, but you get the main concept. So, but before we get into bargaining, let's get into the hot seats. We just get that done with. Okay. Then we got plenty of time. Okay, here we go. Sound effect. Woo! That's a fire sound. It's hot. That means it's hot seat time. Now, I love when I know the guests before they come in, so I can ask you things that I know are that I want to know about.
Okay.
From your wisdoms.
Okay.
Okay, you ready?
Yes.
Question number 1, Cynthia, and take your time, okay? Just whatever comes to your head, and only what you feel comfortable. But question number 1, hot seat. When was the moment you realized, like, was there like a moment or a time in your life when you realized that you had started to heal? Like, was there this moment where you're like, oh my gosh, I'm feeling the healing?
It's funny that you would ask me this question because, as you know, the stories that we go through in the 8-week cohort are actually personal stories of the staff of Twin Cities Recovery Project. Yes. Well, before you guys attended, I had a group, and I had a story. My story's anger, by the way. And the story that I had, one day I was doing grief and trauma. We was doing that story, and I realized that I wasn't mad anymore. I wasn't mad, so I ended up having to change my story in the curriculum because the story that I had at first. Well, I have a brother that was murdered, and it was by nothing that he done, but some other family members. And for many years, I was mad at them about it. Yeah. Especially when they wouldn't talk when I give them answers, or they would blow me off, or and so it got to the point where I wouldn't really have any conversations with them, or the conversations would be very short, and sometimes negative because the way I was feeling. Yeah. But so in 2018, yes, I ended up going to treatment, and I don't know, it's just, I didn't realize that I wasn't mad until one day in group, and that was probably like in I started doing grief and trauma in 2020, so yeah, it was somewhere in there I realized that, hey, I ain't even mad at them no more. So now I got to change my story.
That's beautiful.
Because I wasn't mad, and I don't even ask them about it. Don't even try to pry or make them say anything. I've accepted the fact that I know what happened, they know what happened, and just leave it at that. Yeah. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
He's out at Fort Snelling, buried. I still go out there. We go out there and see him and bring the kids, and his kids are now grown, but yeah, so.
That's wonderful.
Yep.
And see, that's a perfect example of what you said, is like when we're like being there for other people, they're there for us in a way they don't even realize. Yes. And I didn't even realize. Ding, ding, and it's beautiful. Okay, question number 2, Cynthia. How do you maintain this is on accident, kind of falls into it. How do you maintain relationships maybe with people that currently cause or had caused grief and trauma? So how do you maintain any kind of, if you have, if it's kind of like, I have co-parenting situations, I have certain quote unquote family members that I'm going to have to associate with at some point. So I'm curious how you maintain those relationships.
So the very, very most important relationship, physical relationship that I have to maintain, and that was really hard because of my grief and trauma, is with my mother. As a child, she did not believe me, kept putting me in the situation. I grew up very angry, and I literally grew up hating her. Well, in 2014, when I started my journey, recovery, I had to ask God to give me a spirit of forgiveness because it was only hurting me, not nobody else. By me being angry and being mad and resentful and all that, nobody else was mad. It was me that was hurting my own self. So it was with my mother. We have a good relationship today.
Yeah.
And so that's
That shows growth.
yeah.
Okay, is that your phone?
Yes.
You want to grab that quick?
Yeah.
I will talk on that because we're very much connected. Like I don't have that relationship with my adopted mom right now because I'm not ready to pretend to have this relationship with her. I've let go. I've forgiven her, but I've let go of the idea that our relationship will be anything than what it has always been, because she doesn't have the capacity to want to even acknowledge anything and have awareness, self-awareness. So anyway, it's not about me. We're going to go right back into you, and I want to keep on the comments. So listeners, chime in, questions, comments. Cynthia here only for till the end of the hour. But a lot of people do end up listening to this later. So always comment, feel free later, because I'm checking those later. Question number 3, final question. Cynthia Hot Seat. Who is your go-to person and why? And so what I mean by, like, when things are really heavy, not like for me, I only have a couple people that I really feel are like my go-to people when I need a safe space to heal or share, like as a leader or a facilitator, someone that I'm trying to be I'm not trying to be, but I tend to be somebody that people are following or are learning from. I find that I need to go to those people myself that I respect and I like what they do and how they do things, and I need that space to share my deeper stuff. So do you have like a go-to person or go-to people?
Yes, I do. Of course, the first go-to person is my higher power. Yeah. I have to say that. There is a few women at my church who either work for the state or have retired from the state. There's associate minister who's also my adopted father, has had Stair Step Initiative, Stair Step Foundation for many years. Mr. Alfred Babington Johnson, he's my go-to person. Sister Helen Faye Lockett L. And I have a person in nonprofit that I go to a lot, and her name is Miss Artise Mayfield. She has Grassroots in Action. She's like my sounding board off of each other. And I have a few board members of my own organization. So I have a lot of people. What I do the most, though, is I'm a prayerful person. I pray. I have it on my phone. It dings all the time. I pray throughout the day. I pray when I wake up. I pray when I go to sleep. I pray when I'm driving. I'm just a person that, because I think back to where I used to be and how dark and deep my life was at one point in time. And I know that it was nothing but my higher power that has brought me thus far. Do I have struggles? Yes. Am I always happy? No, but I'm always grateful.
Yeah.
I'm always grateful because things can always be worse off than they are. And my grandma always told me, somebody else is always worse off than you. So just thank God for what is and don't worry about what ain't.
Right.
And that's my motto. That's what I live by, and just being grateful. And my gospel music, that's my go-to thing. My gospel music. Get up in the morning, I have to play it. If I'm really like going through some struggles and stuff, there's some songs. There's a song called I Told the Storm. And I Need You Now. Those two songs, man, it's those two songs that just makes me feel inside like everything, no matter what, is going to be all right.
Oh, I love that.
So, yeah. And Leandra Johnson, my theme song is Jesus by Leandra Johnson. Remember we played it on
music. Yes. See, music was my first therapist without even realizing.
Yeah, you
still
told
is.
me.
Yes. So
yes.
beautiful. That is it. You did great.
Thank Thank you.
It's not so bad, right?
No,
So
I
people
love
get,
it.
I had people in here sweating.
Oh, no.
It gets
This
get
is
hot in this room.
like having a normal conversation. You just being your authentic self,
Yeah,
and that's all that matters.
that's what I love about it. You
Yeah.
know, it's just, okay. So that alarm was our final segment that we're going to come into, which is just for fun. This is a live fave. I just like to edit on a positive note if I can.
Okay.
But before we do that, I wanted to come back into what I was going to ask you about. I wrote it down. What was I saying? Do you remember? Oh, the bargaining. So I
Bargaining,
know everyone's
yes.
like, what's bargaining? You want to tell people what bargaining is?
So in the grief and trauma, stages, bargaining is it's kind of more like when you so you're angry, or you're saying, well, if this happened, or if I can do this, then maybe I can do that, or maybe this. And then sometimes people say to themselves, well, if I would have did this, then that wouldn't have happened, or if I would have been there, they wouldn't have went that way and wouldn't have gotten to the accident and died. None of that's true. You know, you can't bargain with yourself and think that if you would have did something different, that the actual circumstance or situation would not have happened. That's not the case, because everything happens in divine order. A lot of times, as humans, we seem to forget that we have no power and no control over this universe. It's not our choice and our control to pull the switch or turn the light off on somebody, to make somebody lose their home, to have an accident. It's not. There's nothing we can do when it's in divine order.
Yes.
So bargaining with yourself, and I ain't gonna lie, I was guilty of it. You know, when I lost my dad. You know, especially at the beginning, you know, before, you know, I was like, God, please just don't let him be dead when I get there. And, you know, if you just keep him alive and this and that. And then after he died, oh, look at you. You should have went when he called you. And if you would have went, he wouldn't have died. And just all this stuff, all that, when knowing in reality that it was going to happen anyway. There's nothing I could have done. But for a long time, I told myself that. You know, but once I got into the grief and trauma and dealing with my own stuff, I realized that was just nonsense. You know, but a lot of times we don't have nothing else to hold on to. No hope, especially if the grief is unresolved and you're not even there's no work done on it. There's a whole bunch of stuff that when you have unresolved grief and trauma that we will hold on to and that we will accept, and things that we will do, not really knowing that it all ties back to our grief and trauma and being unresolved. So.
And it will come out physically, like
Yes.
physical, like ailments.
Aggression.
Yes, and emotionally and mentally and
Yes.
all the things. Okay,
Yes.
let's see. It says, hey, yo, Martin from Wyoming. Hello, Martin. Welcome. Okay, you're just in time for my favorite part. Just kidding, but half kidding. We're going to get into the live Facebook memes. Now, I did mindfully pick a couple just because I knew you were coming. But just look at the screen here. I'm going to take off this banner. And again, I'll have all the information that we've talked about posted later. Maybe not tonight, but definitely by tomorrow. Oh, I got a sound effect. You're going to love this. Okay. This is hard. Ooh, it's scary. Sex file sounds. Okay. All right, enough of that. Let's get into it. Okay, I got... Where are they? There they are. I got them in order. I made sure not to have too many because I just wanted to more have a conversation with you.
Okay.
Okay, first being, now can you see it? Describe it. It's a gremlin. It's a lunchbox. It's got a gizmo. It's a gremlin hat, a little sweater. What does it say? Do you want to read what it? Can you read what it says at the top?
My baby is headed back to school.
Everyone's timeline soon is gonna be my baby's head. It's a gremlin. You know, but that's gonna be the flood of posts
Yes.
back to school.
Yes, that's what me and my grandkids were talking about today. They want clothes. They're ready. Nana, I want skinny. As a matter of fact, I just got a text. I need skinny jeans. I need stack jeans. I need Nike.
And they know who right to go to.
They knew, yeah, they're Nana.
So would you give that a thumbs up or hearts or?
Oh, I would give it hearts for sure.
Yeah. Okay. This one is just, this was a shot at me, I think, and all like for humor, but it's a carrot, and this weird shaped carrot. It's got another carrot that was trying to form next to it. It actually looks like a baby carrot trying to hug. This is a real picture, and it says a rare photo of a baby carrot clinging to its mother before being eaten by a heartless vegan. Stop this cruelty now. I'm vegan. That's why somebody said this to me. Ah ha ha, so funny. Okay. Now this one you got a preview of, because I was like, here's an example.
That looks like Keanu Reeves.
That is Keanu Reeves. He's hot. So that drew me to the meme right away. But it's deep. It's deep. Can you read it?
Yes. It says your value doesn't decrease based on someone's inability to see your worth.
Yeah. What do you think of that?
Oh, man. I'm going through a situation with my significant other right now, and I think I'm going to take that meme you sent me and send it to him. Yeah. People make mistakes and things happen, but that does not mean that because you made that mistake or something happened that you're worthless or that you're no good. You know, and what I'm dealing with him right now, that's how that I feel that he feels, in which I could be wrong. You know, he keeps saying, well, we're going to get through this, but that right there just just summed everything up for me. Yeah. So I'm glad that you sent it to me. Yes!
That'll open up a conversation,
and
maybe.
Yes, I definitely will give it a thumbs up and hearts.
Okay. And I like it too because I now realize how much I have grown. Is that, you know, I didn't even see any worth or value in myself. And now that I've taken 2 solid years of being in a relationship with myself, Cynthia, I do value myself and I do know my worth. And that's probably why I stay single for a while now, because now I have standards and I know what I want. And yeah, it ain't gonna be, I had no standards before. Oh, you like me? Okay, we're dating. Now I'm like, okay, well, what are you passionate about? I got questions for them. Okay, next one. So I just like this one. It's one of these balloon, I think you could just create them on your own, but this one's cool. It says, nothing hurts more than your favorite person turning into a life lesson. What do you think of that one? How many times has that happened?
Wow, that's deep right there. So I just don't even want to think about that because I really can say it has happened, you know, but nonetheless, it still did not make them not my favorite person anymore. Because even with my own children, you know, I love them to death, mind, body, spirit, and soul, and things that they have done or has been a lesson for me. So, that's all I'm going to say about that right there.
Yeah, that's just okay.
That one's too deep for me.
Right? And right away, I'm almost enemy, Cynthia, because one of my closest, bestest friends you met in the group, right? I've come to this understanding now, my inner circle people, my family that I have in recovery, I chose these people to be my family, right? I chose to love them unconditionally. And what I step back and realize is that's scary to me, because the people that I had to love unconditionally, they were put in my life and they weren't the best people, right? So it was very hard to let go. Well, now it's even more scary because these are people that I love unconditionally. I've given my heart, and I get in my head about, it's my own worries of failure or feeling like a failure or, you know, just being overwhelmed and not, you know, and I feel like I'm failing, you know, not being there for her. Anyway, it ended up being all in my own head, by the way, because I finally had a conversation with her. But at the end of the day, my therapist and my mom's group helped me realize that I'm perceiving these things that she's going to leave or be mad at me or not love me anymore. It's all tied to my fear of abandonment.
Yes,
because I love her that much, you know.
Yes,
that's what's scary.
See that.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
I can see that.
Once you get my love and loyalty, you will have that for life. But I've had those people, certain people now aren't in my life because I learned that don't mean shit to some people. Okay, 3 more. Okay, this one this is totally humorous. It's irrelevant who it's from. I think I don't understand. Oh, Twitter. I'm not even on that, but
This is
the therapist, you want to read it? The therapist says, and I'll be me.
okay. What's your attachment style?
Me. I don't know, PDF. Right?
Totally unaware of the physical attachment of the humanity. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's
the reality.
and that's really for the new millennials.
And that's why I'm scared for our youth is that, like, now everything's a screen. They don't really have to process nothing. And when they do get in front of people, they don't even know how to talk.
You're right.
Oh, gosh. Okay, now this one, you tell me what you think, but I've been having some maintenance issues. So it looks like this is an older picture. There's like a spirity looking thing there and a woman walking in. It says, the relief you feel when you realize, I have an old house. It's not that old, 1954. But when you realize the weird house noises are actually ghosts and not shit you can't afford to fix. I thought this was funny because I don't like, okay, it's very, very rare that my house is ever empty. There's always a child, a roommate, a pet.
Something.
So, and I need white noise. I need some kind of noise because when it is quiet and I'm hearing all the creaks. But lately I've just been having car maintenance, like just financial issues. So I don't want to hear no noise. This is not funny when you really think about it because I don't want to be hearing nothing, no spirits. But I'd rather be that than like a flood in my basement. We had some plumbing issues. Like I can't afford nothing else.
Yeah.
Is this okay?
So my guy, the house he moved into, it's really funny because we hear stuff all the time. And we think like, and I just told him one day, I said, there's ghosts here. Let's just leave them alone. We don't bother them. They ain't gonna bother us. That part.
Okay.
Yeah. And so.
That's it. That's what I do too.
Yeah, you can't. My grandma said don't mess with them.
And yes, we recently were hearing noises, right? So I'm getting a little freaked out. Guess what I found out? I forgot that I have a lot of trees, okay? There's this one tree. It's every other year, so I forget. It drops acorn.
Oh, yeah. And you always wonder, what's that noise? And it'd be the acorns dropping. That's hilarious.
But that brings relief, right? Okay, final one. You're going to love this one. You want to go ahead and read that? I pulled that from your website.
There are many walking around today struggling emotionally, and they can't identify where their depression, fear, and hopeless feelings are coming from. I believe for many, it's attached to unaddressed trauma and grief. And that is from Mr. Mark Jonikin, the late, great Mr. Mark Jonikin, who was the president and CEO of Twin Cities Recovery Project and also the founder and CEO of Boots on the Ground.
Yeah.
Mr. Jonikin, rest in peace. I will always love you. You are very, very much missed.
And Cynthia, you have impacted me in such a way, and I know so many people, and just the fact that you have the group, that you raised your hand, I'm so thankful.
Me too.
And is there any final words out to the listeners? I'll just make sure there's any last comments. But we will be connecting soon because we have just a little that Recovery Day of Service coming up. We have a little event coming up, but we want to give to your projects there. But is there anything you want to share to anybody out there now, especially because if they listen, they're listening. It's about grief and trauma. And where do they start? And what would you say to anybody listening?
So anybody listening in the Twin Cities area, I'm going to tell you this. If you are interested in taking some grief and trauma support groups, grief and trauma aftercare after your support group, please call Twin Cities Recovery Project at 612-345-7420 or 612-886-2045. That's our South Side office. The first number is the North Side office. Or you can call me personally at 612-601-5849. You will always have a place in our space to handle and work on your healing. Thanks for having me. I love y'all, and healing is possible. A broken heart can mend.
Yes. Cynthia, oh my gosh. I love that you just put your number right on out there. That's what's up. That's you guys, like your group, TCRP is that I just said on the Rise of Power today. I'm like, they don't talk about it, they be about it. All right, everybody, have a good night. Thank you for listening in, and we will catch you next week. Have a great week. I love everybody.
A blessed week.
Blessed week. Love you.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye-bye. See you.